And as you know, Marcelo Paiva, which you just recently heard, he's the user experience manager, and he's very loved by everyone, and he's the spearhead of UX Fajitas. So he has been working with the community for many years now in South Florida. And of course, thanks to him is that we have this event tonight.
Thanks to the community.
Yes.
So there was like, you should tell everyone how we planned this meeting last night.
Yes, we planned like I think was for 2 hours talking about what we were going to talk about tonight. But I'll go forward to the agenda later. Then we'll have Jonathan Montalvo. He's a product designer at Breaking Ball. He will share his experience of kind of like rebuilding the Clubhouse UI in Figma. So that will be one of the topics tonight. Then we'll have Claudio Vera, and he's a senior analyst digital accessibility at Royal Caribbean Cruises. So anything related to accessibility, he's the man to go, and he will be sharing about what are actually the issues in Clubhouse right now regarding accessibility. And of course, I will be kind of like co-hosting this event. My name is Beto Navarro, and I work at Policy Sapient. And welcome everyone. So,
hey, you need to plug Friends of Figma.
oh, that's coming. No worry. That's coming. So we would like to thank our sponsors. As Marcelo was saying, we are like a big community. First of all, we'd like to thank Ironhack because first of all, this is kind of like their accounts, their Zoom account. So thank you for sharing that account with us. The IXDA South Florida, which will have an event soon, and we'll be telling about that later. Flux, yeah, which is our Slack channel, and it's basically the community channel for all South Florida. So if you haven't gotten to the Slack channel, please do so, and it's a great resource to not only have mentorships, find jobs, ask questions, check portfolios, everything is there. So please join at fluxia.co. And then the meetups. So Flux, that's another part of the community. As you can see, we're very highly part of the community. And as Marcelo was saying, I'm the guy at Friends of Figma, Miami.com. So please feel free to join us and be participant in this huge community that we are spearheading.
Yeah, so I want to take the opportunity to welcome BrainStation to the South Florida community. BrainStation and WinCode just merged or got together or acquired itself, whatever happened. I'm very happy to have BrainStation in South Florida, along with all the great folks from WinCode together. So welcome.
So upcoming events. So on February 18, IXDA Miami, we'll have the Access and Equity, real life cross testing with Fable. Claudio, I don't know, you want to talk a little about that?
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, this is like a brand new, well, it isn't really brand new. Last year we were doing third Thursdays, we were doing accessibility events every now and then. So this year we branded it, we're committing to it, we have a pipeline of really, really good events. And so we branded it under the name Access and Equity. And so every third Thursday, we're going to be talking about some issue with accessibility and trying to relate it to like what the social role or what the impact is going to be on society and all of us of the different sorts of digital technologies that we're looking at. And I am finding it amazingly easy to get some fantastic speakers to come in. So I'm like really excited that I'm going to be able to share this with you. So like, please, like third Thursdays on your calendar. I hope I get to see you guys, every month, but we have some pretty cool stuff lined up. And the folks at Fable, they set up user testing with people with disabilities. Now, that doesn't sound particularly interesting, except for the fact that every company should be doing this. And these guys are the #1 vendors providing these sorts of services. So nobody else has like really pulled together a sort of community of thousands of people with disabilities, of different disabilities, to like rigorously test apps for companies. So we're going to have a few people here with us next month, not next month, 2 weeks from today, February 18th. And it should be a pretty fun, pretty interesting meetup.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then later or on February 24, Friends of Figma will have the theme of migrating Sketch to Figma. So if you're wondering of how to migrate from Sketch to Figma and probably the best practices, we'll have Sergi Paiva from Brief Technologies. He will join us because he's actually on that task right now of migrating a Sketch to Figma on his company. Sergi, do you want to talk a little about that?
Yes, hi guys.
Cry a little.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting process. So I'm just gonna share my pain points, all my experience with moving the whole design system from one tool named Sketch to Figma, and all of the bad and good like parts of it. So it's gonna be interesting. So please join. Don't miss this event. It'll be great.
Awesome.
February 24th.
All right. So today's agenda, as I was saying before, first of all, Jonathan will be talking about rebuilding Clubhouse UI in Figma. So he will be sharing that his thoughts about probably the issues that he found and things that he found while playing and trying to recreate the whole UI of Clubhouse. And then Claudio, he will be talking about the accessibility issues in Clubhouse, which Claudio says that there are a lot. So we'll hear about that and why this is a big issue. And please stay until the end because we have a little announcement, a little big announcement. So it'll be nice for you to stay until the end. So with further...
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question before we begin. Why is the title of this event, What the Fuck Clubhouse? Claudio, you want to take on that?
No, because then we'll take up the next hour or so.
But here's the thing, some of the folks here, they don't know what Clubhouse is, especially like if they are on Android. So I feel like we need to give them a quick introduction. So hopefully, Jonathan, do you mind doing that?
Wait, say that one more time. Sorry, I was closing my door.
Okay.
It's your turn, Jonathan. So basically that.
Was this about the whole accessibility issue with the What the Fuck Clubhouse?
Yeah, you can explain a little about Clubhouse because there's a lot of people that they don't have the app or they don't have access because they have Android phones. So while you're what you have done, just explain a little bit how it actually works, and so just people are aware of how they.
Yeah. So if you're not aware of what it is, and you probably have an Android by now, it's probably why you don't have a Clubhouse app, because it seems to be like really trending right now. So it's kind of, I would say, like a podcast platform on steroids, except you can create groups and you can be moderators of those groups, and you have control over who enters the group speaking mode to let people talk, and you have the power to kick them out if they are people who decide to like bomb your space. So pretty interesting app. Well, a lot of issues there though, right? Because it's all audio based. So it works for people like me, who can see, speak, hear, and have all my senses intact, all my limbs intact. But it's all obviously on the other side of the spectrum, lacking on, I would say that 30% of the population that is not so, doesn't have those capabilities. So that's why this is a what the fuck title, because it's not something that they've done yet, although looks like they will be really focusing on that in the future for the product. But still, kicking this off and it being so trendy, it's leaving a lot of people out. So this is kind of what we've been exploring as a topic between all of us. And that's my rant, and compares to nothing of what Claudio would say.
No, I don't want to rant. I really want, like, if there's anything I want people to take away from tonight, it's not the rant. It's more like, let this be a cautionary tale to whatever brand you're working for, whatever company you're building, whatever new experience you're thinking of. Like, these guys not only have forgotten to do stuff, they've forgotten to do stuff for like a really extended period of time. And so we're going to kind of pick this apart. We're going to deconstruct it. And really, hopefully, this is going to be a great teachable moment for all of us.
Right.
All right. So, Jonathan, the floor is yours. So, if you want to share what you got for us, please go ahead.
This will stop with a screen share. Okay, continue. Figma. Oh no, come on, Zoom. Sorry, this is a new computer and I have to unlock the security feature because I have a Mac. One sec. It might end up locking, kicking me out, and I might have to come back in. Yeah, I'll be right back. Sorry.
Well, we're live, so this happens when you're live. So please bear with us.
I can probably share the file, Jonathan, and follow you, and you can. You know.
He just like left the Zoom. I think he's jumping right back on.
Cool.
Right, we're all on the same
Right, so-
deck.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the second part of this event. Alberto Orsini, it has a 90-degree YouTube channel, and all he does is, besides, I'm gonna let him introduce himself. So Alberto, do you wanna give us the pleasure to tell us what you do during the day, what you do in evenings, and
Cool. I mean, sure.
before 11. Before 11.
Share your location as well.
Hey, by the way, I'm back.
All right, Alberto is introducing himself and just kind of introducing the second part of this event.
Go for it.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Alberto Orsini. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure to meet, I am a design leader, design manager in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, where I currently reside. And yeah, I've been obsessed with sort of like design systems and building and managing teams and how to more effectively do design at scale. And for the longest time, I was a Sketch user, and I was a Sketch advocate, I would say, and doing. In fact, it inspired me to open up kind of like a little channel on YouTube, the 90 Degrees. I shared the link in the chat. I started it as a way to share as I learned, like little tutorials and stuff like that. Last year kind of forced everyone to learn how to better live online and share stuff online. And I've finally found a good quiet spot in my life to actually give Figma a try. And I have no idea how I was doing without this tool. And now I'm fully converted into a Figma advocate to the point where I still love Sketch, and Sketch has brought me a lot in my life, but yeah, I'm more of a Figma advocate these days and doing quite a bit there. So anyway, feel free to subscribe to me on 90 Degrees. I'm actually also pretty active on Instagram, where I'm just Alberto Orsini altogether. I'll type it for you. So feel free to join me there. And thanks, Marcelo, for letting me plug my stuff here.
Now you're going to be teaching everyone the variance trick that you showed on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm ready.
Cool, thanks. Go ahead, John.
All right. Can you guys see the entire board?
Yes.
Yep, we're good.
All right. So, and similar to Alberto, I've never worked in Figma as much really, and this was like a perfect opportunity to kind of jump in. Me and Marcelo spoke, and we thought this was something we should explore. So I kind of you
And
know,
Laura.
lent a hand and got to work and really, you know, went headfirst to learn this Figma tool, which I can agree with Alberto. I don't know how I lived without, because it's a really great tool and there's a lot of awesome things. So yeah, so we kind of put together some basic flows here. So to go through this process, what I did was, and with the help of Laura and Marcelo, just screenshotted a bunch of stuff, you know, kind of labeled each flow, just to get a sense of, you know, what it would look like, what it would feel like, and to make sure I was connecting each screen in the prototyping phase the right way. And that was kind of like the first initial exploration, which is get as many screens as possible, and almost went through a tracing process really of building each of these components, which in a lot of ways, and maybe it's just because they're screenshotted, you know, I felt like there were a lot of inconsistencies with the sizing that they were using with buttons, typography, and different components. Me personally, I like to follow an 8-point rule or 4-point rule, keeping everything kind of consistent and balanced. And I was finding a lot of inconsistency in their UI with that. So I made sure that, you know, even though I was tracing the components, I still stuck with that core foundation of building the different components of their interface. And sorry, I think my keyboard is conking out on me. All right, so if we go to the prototype, what we did here was just go, you know, built the onboarding flow. And everything, mostly everything is a component. Each of these buttons are components. You know, they have all of their different properties or variants for each interface. Input fields, everything is just structured as you would any app. Simple flow on the onboarding side, creating these little chips and getting all these little emoji symbols in there as well. Tedious work, nothing too crazy here. The goal was just to get as much done so we had plenty to work with, and everything was literally built piece by piece. So if you look here, I have all the different variants of notification types. So this is with multiple, and then this is without, but that should actually be red. I don't know why that's green. And everything's kind of built as you would build in development. So it's all kind of boxed in pieces, and also using, if I can drag here, maybe this works. No, it's not working. Not letting me drag it, but the stack feature.
Yeah, that's because the auto layout.
Yeah, the auto layout feature, and I'm used to the XD language, it's stacked. But if I move these cards, you can see they just easily flip without changing the spacing in between them, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. So one thing, let me add something to this, Jonathan, if I may. So what led us to start building this this Figma file is mostly to help this app or this team or the community come up with design solutions using this boilerplate. So I think that's the direction that we are heading. So kind of a saving everyone time to jump in and really start creating solutions, like simple challenges like let's create a dark theme, right? So now we have all the boilerplate, everything ready here to allow people to do that and help the community.
Yeah, that was the goal. Definitely to have this built out so that we can do some community challenges and everyone has all this flexibility to go in here and make any changes necessary at the component level or, you know, at the prototyping level. But just to kind of give you a sense of how the prototype would look, because it is, let's play this baby. So we'll go through the onboarding flow real quick. Nothing crazy here. Looks good. Here is kind of where it gets a little fun. So you can scroll, you can, check who's available to chat with. You can swipe, you can get inside the chat room. You can add people to the chat room, and these are just simple functions that are there. Nothing too fully interactive. You can minimize the window.
Jonathan, do you mind explaining what everyone sees? So let's keep in mind that some folks here never used the app.
Okay, yeah. So the onboarding experience was basically getting what you're interested in, them getting your information, finding some friends so you can kind of get started. And this is like the main interface. So the top area, you obviously have kind of like your nav where your notification is, upcoming events. And this is kind of like, they give you invites so you can invite people. And these are little banners that just tell you what's up and coming if you're a part of a group or based off your interests. I don't believe this is there anymore, but this is just a call to action to find some more of your friends. And each of these cards below are actual chat rooms where people are in talking about different topics. So, at the top you have, wisdom accelerator for the youth and conversations in there, between moderators, and then there's even listeners, right? So that's kind of what that is. Each of these cards is a room to go into where you can listen to people talk, have some dialogue. And when you enter one of these cards, you can raise your hand and it'll notify a moderator that you're interested in speaking, and they have the ability to let you in to that part of the room where you can start having some dialogue, right? And each of these users, if you can tell, have like the celebration icon and a mute icon. Best practices here are, if you're not speaking, mute yourself. If you want to acknowledge what somebody said and they can see, you would tap that multiple times. It's kind of like a way of clapping. And if you're just not interested in being in the room anymore, you could just leave. But while you're in the room, you can also listen in, right, as you scroll through other topics. And you can even go into LinkedIn on your phone. You can go into Instagram, and you can do all kinds of other things while still listening to what's going on in the room that you were in, right? You can also start a room. So you can, start an open-ended room, get things going. And you can start a closed room where you can go in and select some of your friends, people people you're interested in, get them in the room. If there's somebody you don't recognize and you want to see, a little bit more about them, there's a little drawer that pops up that gives you like a brief bio of who they are. You can follow them. And when you follow them, it gives you kind of like people they follow, or maybe people you may be interested in. And this would be like a swipe feature where you can kind of swipe through and you can eliminate that. And let's see what else I got here. I honestly think that would be the bulk of the prototype. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very simple app. That's why it's so popular.
Right.
This came out of during the pandemic, and folks were just fatigued or tired of putting fake selfie on Instagram or Facebook, and this app is just like completely revolutionized how people interact with each other. It's almost like going back. They stripped down everything. You cannot share links, you cannot share text, you cannot share images. All you can do is unmute yourself to talk, right? So I think that brings in, like, for the product designers out there or user experience designers, this is human interaction, right? This app is fulfilling the needs of the folks going through some difficult times, as we all are.
Right. And, so when the time comes to start, kickstart this challenge, we knew we wanted to have things kind of organized for you. So this was just my way of brain dumping a bunch of components the best way I knew how in Figma. And I was working with Marcelo to really start organizing this stuff. but you can see, I mean, everything in here is at the component level. Yeah, somebody said something. But yeah, everything in here is at the component level. And when the time comes, when you guys come in here, I mean, this is all going to be free range, fully editable. You know, sky's the limit at this point. There are no screenshots. Everything has been rebuilt for you.
That's a great example of how to use variants. So I see the little corners.
Yeah.
That's the work that you did. It's awesome.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. And then, you know, Marcelo started organizing all the different sizes of all the avatar images, as well as, you know, some other icons that could possibly come into the picture. Again, this is something that I believe he did to have open-ended in case you want to get creative with the idea that there are these icons in your avatar or on your avatar in the chat room. So having a couple different ones here for whatever purpose you deem necessary, we figured we threw it in there, and some of it makes sense, right? The eyeball is like you're just kind of peeking in the room. You're not really there to speak. This is like obviously praise, whatever someone said. Now every time I see this rocket ship, I think of like Dogecoin.
So that's yeah.
It's doing good right now, by the way.
I know. It's actually open right in front of my eyes right now. I'm looking at it.
Look at you doubling your money right now.
Yeah.
And where else? I know he's got some other stuff here. So him going through the styles, and he'll probably speak to this a bit more, but you know, I don't know how I discovered their typeface. I just went through Google fonts and I found something very similar. I don't know if it is the exact one, but it definitely aligns pretty well with what's in their product. But I mean, you can see to the extent that we're going in terms of organizing this. And one thing I'm definitely learning from Marcelo is how to do this in a way that's so uniform that it would make sense for a huge team to understand versus, you know, me going in, designing and naming things with my own kind of framework of conventional names versus something that, you know, someone like Marcelo has years of experience doing this. You know, he holds the key.
I hold the key to a clubhouse.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, do you want to open it up for questions or you just want to continue?
Yeah, let's open up for some questions. I'm sure there are a bunch of questions right now. We have about 82 participants, so let's try to make this in an orderly fashion. I have no idea because this is not Clubhouse. I wish I had a kind of a queue of people raising hands. So if you have a question, just, you know, the first one, just like unmute and ask the question. And I'll try to manage that way.
Or feel free to ask on the chat as well if you're like super shy.
Yep. Yes.
I did have one question. You said you went from Sketch to Figma. I know some designers are also using Sketch with Figma. Has Figma completely replaced your usage of Sketch at this time?
So I think you were referring to Sergi. Sergi's transferring a design system from Sketch into Figma, but I mean, I'm in the same scenario in a lot of ways. And the answer is no. When I use Sketch, I use Sketch. That's about it. If I need to prototype something or animate something from a Sketch build out, I would probably bring it into something like XD or Protopie or even After Effects if it's just for show and not for anyone to interact with. But Figma, where I am, is slowly becoming like our go-to. Nothing we need to migrate to it. It's just, you know, it's just a matter of us starting to build inside of it and just keep whatever we have in Sketch because it's an agency. So if we're working in Sketch for a certain company, it's, you know, those files are already there in Sketch and it's for that company and there's no need to really migrate. We can keep that framework.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Tomas. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jonathan. So as somebody who is seems like super experienced with Sketch, and is getting their way into Figma, what do you think are the biggest plus and minuses with those two against each other? So if you're starting a project, like you're leading a project or you're going to be the go-to person on a project and you're starting it from scratch, why would you start a project in Figma? Why would you start a project in Sketch?
Okay, that's a good question.
Excellent question.
It's also about like what you're most comfortable with. I mean, if you're not familiar with Figma, and you've been working in Sketch and you have a real project with a real deadline, it's not the smartest idea to just jump into Figma and start, figuring things out as you go. But I would say now that I have kind of dabbled in Figma and in Sketch, I would think of two reasons why I would choose Figma over Sketch, and not to downgrade Sketch in any way, because the one thing I do like about Sketch is just their organization in terms of building out different styles and components and design system language and stuff like that. But at this other side of the spectrum, Figma also has their own way of doing it with this whole variance thing that just kind of blows Sketch out of the water in a sense, because and on top of the fact that Figma has prototyping capabilities where you can animate screens and have users really interact with it in a kind of real world scenario. So that would be the reason why I would go with Figma, just because you could do more on the prototyping side, and because now that I've understood the framework on how things are organized in the system, I'm starting to like it a lot better than Sketch, but it still doesn't take away from Sketch's ability because it is still a great tool. And on top of the fact that Sketch is really slow when you build out a lot, versus Figma, because it's cloud-based or web-based, it tends to be able to handle the weight a lot better.
Yeah, let me add a couple of points for those folks just graduating from boot camps and trying to pick a tool to go with. If you're going to be working as a freelancer by yourself, pick the tool that you feel most comfortable with on delivering on time. If you are going to be collaborating with a dispersed team, Figma is definitely your tool, and does not require a specific platform as Sketch does. Only who has Mac, those who has Mac can collaborate. Figma is a web app, and it works in any platform, and it has a very good performance as well. They're all pretty much the same price. Adobe XD has some amazing micro interactions capabilities. Figma is still ramping up. Sketch is just so clumsy on that sense. So I think overall, you should pick the tool that you feel most comfortable with for the client and the project that you have at hand.
Yeah, especially as a freelancer. And you honestly might find yourself in a scenario where you might be forced to work in a different software. Sometimes you'll have a client that has it all already kind of built in, let's say XD, and you're more of a Sketch or Figma advocate. There's that scenario too. I would personally say just dabble a little bit in each. Learn the best practices of each, just to have it. The more tools in your belt, the better. But be a master of one. I think that's the goal.
Also with Figma, I'll add that as far as working with like the web dev team with Figma, like it allows you to directly kind of do a handoff, and you can give them a link to view only without them touching your things, and they can do an inspect and get on the CSS without, you having to have a plugin or going through InVision, doing all that. So
I have all of my product teams and my clients comment directly on my file, so they don't have to go through InVision and log in, and then I have to go there, come back to my tool. Yeah, everything happens. Everything happens in Figma. Whatever brainstorming and what I used to do in like a Miro board, for example, or an InVision board, all of that happens in Figma for me now, and I've been using it a lot. I'll probably do some demo at some point. I've been using it a lot for managing different social media accounts with Emil. I think he's in the crowd as well.
Yes. Mhm.
And we've basically built these robust design systems that are really like Instagram posts. And whenever we're working with clients and everything, we just send them the link via text message, and they're able to see as it will look on Instagram directly on their phone, which is just magnificent for us. I mean, it really, really works out to so many levels. I feel like I've replaced like 5 different tools just using Figma.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So Mark is asking a couple of questions actually. Does Figma have a offline mode? And also he travels a lot, and he wants to have, like, I'm assuming that does Figma has permissionings like GitHub that you can share with some folks. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit, Beto. I think because you've done this a number of times. Oh, he's getting his food at the door.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, there he is.
yeah, just to answer the question. Yeah, you have like permissions on Figma. So you are the owner, and you decide who has full access to the file. You can set a person as a viewer, so they can just see the file, they can put comments, but they cannot edit the file. Or they can be editors, so they have full control of the file as well. That's the way like how sharing works in Figma. You can share or the prototype or the actual file, like what you are seeing right now as well, like different. Like if you want just to share the prototype, you can just share that alone by itself, or you can actually share, like for example, what Jonathan is showing as well. The thing to remind everyone is like, imagine like Google Docs is kind of like the same wing, but for designers in Figma, because it's really made for collaboration. So you work in a big team, or let's say you have a friend that you're working together in a file. It's really smooth to work together instead of, sharing the sketch file and sending it and then doing changes, because you can jump together at the same time and just work on the file together.
Yeah, I'm gonna go jump now, and I'm gonna work with Jonathan on a
So
file
if
so I
you
can follow
see
him.
avatar where Jonathan face is the yellow one, and then Marcelo is the one with the blue top. So eventually you will see two cursors in the file at the same time. So that's how the collaboration works. As you can see, cross team is Marcelo, and of course Jonathan is the regular cursor. So bear in mind that, like, this is why probably Figma is really good, and especially because of with the pandemic, nobody could be on the office, so this made like really the most sense to work together in teams, right? Like everyone together at home. So that was kind of like the the big thing that Figma brought to the design community to work together.
Beto, I wanted to add something to that, which I think is really special as well. When we move to remote, we're often presenting over Zoom and stuff like that. And there's always, people asking you to zoom in, or like there's a big delay and you can't really show what you're doing. What I'm typically doing is sending people the link to the file, and then they can click on my avatar and they can see as I'm seeing. So I'm zooming in. They're basically following along with my cursor as I present, which I also think it's really awesome.
So check that out. So I just clicked on the cross team.
Yeah, click on me, and I'll just go.
So he's
Actually,
manually doing this. I'm not touching it, and
right.
you can see it's highlighted around the viewport that I'm in his view.
Right. So maybe I can talk a little bit about this. Like, these are the variants. And so, as you probably are familiar with the variants, so you have avatars with different sizes, so you can delegate all the sizes for that shape here. You can select different photos based on the gender, ethnic, mood, backdrop. I guess you're not seeing my UI, but you can create a bunch of variables for this. You can then keep nesting components, and in the end, you have something like this that you can just quickly change. That's it. So, a little bit about the way we organize files. So what we tend to do is we have the thumbnail, and this is the thumbnail that will show up on the landing page of Figma. So it's a good practice to put the name of the file, the project, the version, who's working on. There's some README file if you're working with a large team, so you can set some instructions. You can create some utilities that that you're going to be using all the projects. So this is not part of your design system per se, but this is something that everyone needs, like annotations. The styles, go ahead.
I'm lusting to go around and play around in this, and like I'm biting my tongue because there's a spoiler to hey, if you really like this.
Let's get to it. So there are two things. So we're talking about Figma, and the main reason why we decided to dissect the hell out of Clubhouse, it was to solve some of the issues this app has, especially for people with disabilities. So with that, Jonathan, do you want to add anything to what you had to show?
I still have a lot more work.
This is an amazing amount of work. This is like a really, really, really good work product. I am duly impressed.
I want to thank Jonathan and Laura. Laura was our user researcher, and she was like, grabbing screens, and she would just go in Clubhouse and participate in rooms. When she would see something new to her, she would just grab the screen and bring it over here. So it's been an amazing experience working with this ship. So
yeah, that made it a lot easier because I didn't have to search for anything anymore, and it was good. It was good collaboration, and still going. So
still going. So I was just working on the tokens. So the tokens are working. And tomorrow I'm going to be working on the themes. We're going to be able to have like any theme for this UI. And with that,
this is like the Flux infiltration team here. This is like design ops, happening at its best.
Hey, Marcelo, I just want to add one small thing for anybody that hasn't used Clubhouse. Because you were talking about some of the things that it lacks. When someone is speaking, it has around the avatar, it shows a ring of the color that is very similar to Clubhouse.
Oh, let me share that.
Actually, let me share that because I just worked on that today on a separate file.
Go ahead, Marcel. You have the floor.
So basically, let me show you what Laura is talking about. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So this is I'm working on the tokens here. So it's pretty much taking every single design decision of the Figma file, and I can address that with a JSON file. That's what the developer will take, or we take from them. So you can see how over here, I have a focus token, which right now it's set to this color here. So I'm just going to uncomment this. And so I'm just going back to Figma here, and I have I believe the app is over here. And I'm gonna bring the ring.
That would be in the chat.
Yeah. So see how the ring is here? So this is what Laura is talking about. When someone's speaking, you have this ring over here. It's very light. It doesn't provide enough color contrast. You don't even know, especially like if someone else is talking down the list, you know, it just goes away and you don't see who's speaking.
Right. And knowing who's talking in a room is like one of the most important things of this user experience. So this is a big time miss. Can you scroll up a little bit? Because I wanted to talk about contrast issues, but you have the screens here. So this is better so we can actually share them. You see how you have like the white to the putty transition? What do you think is going to happen if you go into high contrast mode? That sort of transition between white and putty is going to completely disappear. And if you're using that without a border to define your cards, and you're using that to kind of gestalt what goes together, you go into high contrast mode, you just lost all of those relationships.
So you're saying like add a border like this?
A very thin, light gray border, something that can survive the transition into high contrast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit of what we're trying to do here and what the next two events on Figma, Friends of Figma, and the IXDA event will bring to this community. Go ahead, Claudio. It's your time.
Okay. Who's driving the deck?
You want me to drive it for you, Claudio?
Sure, drive it for me.
So
It'll save us a few transitions.
So demanding.
okay, 1 second. I lost everything.
So I hate the fact that I have to rearrange my screen every single time we change shares too. Like this just like, ugh, zoom, bad zoom, bad zoom. Okay. What the absolute fuck, Clubhouse? I mean, really, like a company that is funded, that is this long out of the gate with this many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users on it, and you haven't even begun to communicate
1.5 million. Yeah.
anything towards accessibility. You know, like I have some issues here. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is a key thing, and this is going to be, you know, this issue here is going to probably be one that will be debated in a lawsuit in the future. Like, what is Clubhouse? Is Clubhouse an online phone social service? You know, I don't know if you guys remember those ads on TV from the 90s and the 2000s, like, hey, call 900 such and such and join singles in your area, you know, for a chat line. Like, that was plain old telephone service. That was before a lot of legislation, and you could get away with having just regular phone with no accommodations and nothing for deaf people. Okay, so is that what Clubhouse is? Is it an online social phone service, or is Clubhouse a social media platform that focuses on live audio conversations in targeted environments, which are called rooms? Now, if it's a social media platform, and mind you, all the communication is happening over IP addresses and over the internet, then shouldn't be subject to the same sort of accessibility rules that the rest of the internet has to behave by. So this is going to be a very, very crucial question. I personally feel very strongly that the answer is that it is a social media platform, and this is the way that things should be going, and this is the way we should be considering. So with great power comes great responsibility. Next slide. Oh, I'm getting one slide ahead of myself. So what if you looked at Clubhouse and Clubhouse said, you know what, we built the app and we discovered that we exclude Black people. Or we built the ad just for straight people, LGBTQ, you know, like, hey, you know, you have no place here in Clubhouse. Like, people would be wanting to burn the place down. They'd have like pickets and pitchforks and torches, and they would be at, you know, the CEO's house. You could see the same thing for any sort of ethnic or religious group. If Clubhouse systematically excluded Muslims or Jews or Latinos or any other ethnic group, or indigenous people, I mean, there would be no shortage of outrage against Clubhouse. So let's talk about who Clubhouse actually does exclude. So the Clubhouse experience excludes deaf people. That's with a lowercase d and an uppercase d. It excludes deaf people entirely. There is no affordance, no accommodation, nothing made to allow a deaf person to go into Clubhouse and participate. So they are systematically excluded from the app. The app is only marginally usable for someone who is hard of hearing. So basically, you know, the only affordance you have to working Clubhouse is turning the volume up. Like, that's it. If you have low vision or you have a hard time seeing small text, you're shit out of luck, because you don't even have the affordance of being able to turn up the type size. So Clubhouse is no good for people who have any sort of vision difficulties or any sort of visual challenges. And, you know, we've been kind of going back and forth. There's still a little bit of research that needs to be done in terms of how well Clubhouse's features work for people who are blind. Let's just say that what a sighted person can experience in Clubhouse is a far greater experience than what a blind person can. And last night, Marcelo and I were in a room where we were finding out, like, so, you know, there's a blind moderator that was running a room in Clubhouse. It was like, really? It does this? Oh, really? It tells you this? And it's like, he had been in Clubhouse for months and had no idea that these features existed because they were just basically shut out for him. So if you want to talk like equity, or you want to talk about parity between the sort of experience that an able person would have and the experience that a person with a disability would have, it doesn't exist in Clubhouse. So this is probably one of the most ableist, exclusionary digital experiences I've ever run into. So for me, it's, you know, on one hand, it's fascinating because it's like, you know, hey, it's like a lab example of everything you should not do. And in part, this is why we're doing this webinar tonight, so that we can use this kind of as a teachable moment for all of the rest of us who are building apps and building digital experiences.
Right. No, but I also think it's a great responsibility is that most folks here are or are becoming product designers, right? Or they follow UX in some form. So this is our responsibility to design accessible experiences, no matter where we are. It could be Clubhouse, it could be Reef, it could be Royal, it could be Coca-Cola, it could be, you know, wherever. It's your responsibility to try to include all the users. Your business requirements will always try to get the 80%, but the 20% comes from your responsibility.
Right. And those little everyday design and tech decisions that you make add up, and they have a huge impact on other people's ability to be able to use your digital product. And so they really have an impact. And if your digital product is something that has an effect on the quality of somebody's life, then yeah. And if you start having hundreds of apps that are like Clubhouse that exclude people who are deaf, well then, you know, life starts to suck for a deaf person who is excluded systematically from being able to participate in all these different communities. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So you can pick out some of your favorite 80s and 90s celebrities here. Remember way back when we had Obama as president? There was a law that was signed in 2010, and it was called the 21st Century Video Accessibility Act. And most people think of this law as really one that only refers to things like Netflix and online video, but actually the way the law is written, it covers basically every single type of digital experience, anything that relies on an IP address, such as Clubhouse. So next slide. So what does Clubhouse actually include in it? So the CVAA, rather, what does that include in it? It has a section on it where it talks about performance objectives. So this is the driest of dry language, but embedded in all of this is something that I feel are the 10 commandments that should be taught in every single UX boot camp, should be taught in every computer science program, and should be, you know, like if I were one to have tattoos, I would have it tattooed on my arm, okay? So a digital experience should be, number one, it should be operable without vision. So if you're a blind person, you should be able to manage whatever this user experience is. Number two, it should be able to be operable with low vision and limited or no hearing. So it means that you need to be able to run it without a screen reader that's reading the content to you, but with very limited eyesight. So that means stuff like magnification, zoom, high contrast, that sort of thing that most of us designers are very aware of. Little or no color perception. Okay, so if you're colorblind, there are different ways of showing and representing information. Operable without hearing. This is a crucial one. So if you can't hear, you need to be able to participate in this digital experience, even if in some way that is not auditory. If you cannot operate a mouse, and this is really where the fifth one comes down to, where you have limited manual dexterity, you should be able to still operate a user experience. So we have other ones, we have limited reach and strength. So this is like, you know, if you're a small person, you need to be able to reach the kiosk. If you're in a wheelchair, you need to be able to reach an ATM. I mean, these sort of things. These are really, really crucial requirements that go into every digital experience. Prosthetic device, it may sound weird until you have to operate a touch screen. So you have to have either a touch screen that works with an artificial pointer or stylus, or you need to be able to have some other sort of way that doesn't involve touch and gestures of being able to operate a digital experience. No timers, time-dependent controls. Operable without speech. Well, this is pretty self-explanatory. Like for somebody who can't speak, they can't participate in Clubhouse either fully unless there were some sort of chat function embedded into it. And then finally, operable with limited cognitive skills, which is a great sort of criterion, but it's one that we, I think, as developers or as a design community, I don't think we've quite explored this one and really defined this one particularly well yet. So any questions before I move on? Because I just threw the 10 commandments at you. And
yeah,
I don't
Claudio.
even look like Moses.
Claudio, it's Cameron. Hey, I'm curious if you think that CVAA definitively applies to communication tools like Clubhouse. I know that for like video game, in video game, audio requires it, but I'm not sure that I have enough expertise to know for Clubhouse if it applies.
So at a legal summit that I was at, about a year and a half ago, I actually had the good fortune of meeting with one of the people that authored the CVAA. And, I was amazed at how like forward looking the language was, that in something that was written in 2010 could still apply today and will still probably apply 30 or 40 years from now. But the way the experience is defined, it really can be argued pretty successfully and without a whole lot of difficulty that applies to anything with an IP address. The only thing is that they didn't call it an IP address. They basically said anything that uses a remote protocol for transferring information or something along those lines. So yeah, the CVAA has an incredibly broad reach to it. But this is basically, even the plaintiff law firms, the sort of drive-by web accessibility firms, that are doing all the lawsuits, they're not particularly well schooled on the CVAA. So this is, on one hand, it's obscure, but on the other hand, like what they're saying here is so fundamental.
Right. Yeah. The other question I had was about operable without speech. To what extent do you think assistive technologies like an AAC device would sort of mitigate that requirement for Clubhouse? Like AAC augmented, what is it? Augmented communications device?
Alternative and augmentative communications. Yeah, you're
just
asking the wrong guy. Like those are trigger words for me because I don't have a very high regard for AAC. I would tell anybody just use chat instead, please.
Emojis.
got it.
Why not? Why not? I mean, why is it triggering?
Okay, we did an entire webinar, like a 2-hour webinar where we picked them apart to pieces and really got into like all the failings of AACs and the entire industry around them with vendor lock-in, monopolistic behavior, overcharging the clients. Like we really, like, I don't think we spared them anything. So
Well, maybe if I scaled it back and just said text to speech. I mean, if you're on an iPhone, you can do text to speech, or an Android phone pretty easily.
So you're asking if that's an adequate accommodation for something that's operable without speech?
Exactly.
Yeah, it comes down to essentially like somebody who can't speak is able to enter speech, and that speech is coming out on the other end in a way that the other participants in a room can understand it in real time.
But if I held sorry to be in the weeds, but I'm really curious. Like if I held my phone up, if I held another phone up that was doing text to speech next to my iPhone, like I could, I guess what I'm saying is that where are the lines drawn? Like to what extent is it the really responsibility of the application developer?
It really depends on what your role is. Like say like if I were the product manager, right, to this app, like my litmus test would be, can somebody who cannot speak, are they able to participate in real time? And are they able to participate meaningfully in a group discussion? That would be my litmus test. Not after the fact, not like the conversation's moved on and the text is finally showing up and being transcribed, that sort of thing. Like that's a litmus test I would have. I'm not sure how the courts would look at this, so I can't give you a legalistic sort of point of view, but this is how I personally would handle this as a product manager. So let's go to the next slide and we'll see how they did. So
do you want to do a quick time check, Claudio? Just how much time do you think you need?
I think this is my last slide.
All right, let's put the poop in the pool.
So, I mean, this is the short version of it.
That's your assessment about Clubhouse, how it's doing on the 10 Commandments.
How much green do you see here?
1.
There we go.
Right.
If you're colorblind, well, it doesn't suck so bad, but for people without hearing and people without speech, it's pretty dismal. And, to their credit, there's quite a few not applicables there. But really, this is where the real problems are. I forgot what the next slide was. Let's go. Or is it not me anymore? So what is missing? Okay, so Clubhouse has this app. They have, 1.5 million followers. They don't have accessibility. So what would they need to have to be able to at least not be in deep legal trouble? Okay, so if you, for instance, as a designer, as a new UX person, you just joined this company and they're running an inaccessible app, how do you get yourself out of deep shit quickly? So first thing that you do is you're going to post an accessibility statement. You're going to say, we are deeply committed to accessibility, blah, blah, blah. If you have any feedback, we value your feedback. Here's where you can provide your feedback. This is crucial. Because if you don't have this, you're like Teflon and you are not in a position to be able to listen to anyone. Now, Clubhouse has this sort of issue queue where you can fill out a form, you fill it in, and I think everyone with a disability has probably gone through, filled this out, and heard crickets. So not only do you have to have an accessibility statement and be able to take in feedback, you also need to communicate back what you're doing. And this list that we have here is all about that. So the next thing is you want to have a roadmap of accessibility features with milestones. So you say, all right, we don't have captions today. we will have captions tomorrow. We're working towards this, and October 1st, we expect that we will have captions out. Now, October 1st could be a total bullshit deadline, but at least you say you're trying, and at least you're saying you have it in the future, and at least you're saying you have this, on your roadmap. Twitter massively messed up. Laura's bringing this up. So Twitter released audio only tweets, and they forgot to add captions to them. And the blowback from that was so intense that within a week or two that they had to actually recall it, take it back. And they were shamed into realizing that they didn't even have an internal accessibility team to handle these sorts of issues. So they just stepped right in a pile of elephant shit with this. And it was disgraceful. Netflix was sued for not having captions on its online video. Harvard and MIT were sued because they were putting their courses online for free and didn't have captions to that online video. So there is a laundry list of precedents of organizations that don't have online video. So I'm kind of at a loss for words. What is Clubhouse thinking that they're better than Harvard and MIT and Netflix and Twitter that they don't have to have captions? I'm just baffled here. So next step, and this is what Twitter did, is they started hiring to create an internal team devoted to accessibility. And I could only hope that Clubhouse would do the same. And then finally, as a cultural thing, and as a corporate thing, you want to express some sort of a commitment to equity. And that equity doesn't just refer to skin color, national origin. It also reflects, different levels of ability than those 10 commandments that I was talking about. So I think now I can step off my soapbox and you guys can move on.
What does that leave us with? What the next steps?
Well,
right? For this community. Now, okay, we know that it has accessibility issues, and by the way, I think everyone who's on Clubhouse today should leverage those invitations to invite at least one person with disability into the app, just so they can experience and raise awareness of accessibility on that app. For those who are on the Android platform, they will be working on an Android version soon, if they're not already working on that. That's one of their top priorities issue. So how does that leave this community with these issues? Should I bring Beto or Jonathan here to announce the challenges that we have?
It is time.
Yeah, big announcement. Yeah, so similar to what we did with Adobe XD a while back, we want to kind of build this challenge around accessibility. So this is why we're building out this UI for Clubhouse to kind of give you a head start on the platform. And, we'll come up with a creative brief. But, the challenge here, we haven't come up with a challenge yet specifically, right? That's going to be announced the next meetup, I believe. And, that's the goal, is to come up with a challenge, come up with a brief for the challenge, and have this UI ready for you guys to kind of jump in. I'm assuming you can team up. If not, you can do it individually. But the goal is for you guys to get really, really creative under this topic of accessibility and see what you come up with.
Right. Yeah. So, and please, if you want an invite to Clubhouse, I have one invite. I think Cameron was asking if someone had an invite. I can invite you to that, Cameron. Saleena has 3 invites. Does anyone else have an invite? Saleena, please save one of those invites to someone with the disability.
I've got 5.
I got 5 as well.
All right, so let's try. I'm assuming everyone here is on Fluxia. If not, we can put the link for you to join our South Florida UX Slack community, and we can touch base on that. We're gonna create a room called Clubhouse on Fluxia right now, and you can join that. We can put all the available invites on that channel, and we'll figure out how many people need them, and we'll manage that accordingly. Moving forward in terms of what's on play on February 18, Claudio, and how are we going to be announcing the challenge? So the goal is Jonathan, Laura, and I, we are working on this Figma boilerplate, as you saw earlier, that we're going to make it available to anyone to copy that, just so you can create your own solutions for Clubhouse. And on the 18th, we're going to find a way for you to post your solutions as your portfolio piece, right? Whether it's on Dribble, so we're going to figure out a way to tag them all, and or Instagram, try to really raise awareness about this. Claudio, do you want to plug the 18th event?
Well, yeah, the 18th, we have our friends from Fable coming over. So Fable is a company in Toronto that does the accessibility testing with, they'll assemble basically focus groups of people with different disabilities to evaluate your digital experience and see if it works. So you might find that you have a great digital experience that works for, hard of hearing, or it works for people who can't use a mouse, but then you find that deaf users absolutely cannot use it because there are roadblocks in it. So it's going to be an interesting sort of presentation where we have, our presenter is going to be Sam Prue, who's been on here before.
He's on Clubhouse. He's on Clubhouse as well.
And he's on Clubhouse too. And he is, I think he was born blind or became blind at an extremely young age. And he is an unbelievable whiz at being able to manage screen readers and manage computers. He is about as native as you could possibly get in that sort of environment. And he also manages their community. So it should be a really interesting meetup. And I know Sam's planning on doing a demo for us on how screen readers work. And then we're also going to start diving deep into the ethics of testing and what you should be using it for, and how companies should be dealing with the results from this sort of disability testing. So it should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that day, February 18th, we're going to be announcing the accessibility design challenges for you to exercise. Needless to say that most of us here are mentors of Flux Hours. And if you need to learn more about accessibility and how to design accessible experiences, you can team up with us and we can get you up to speed. Thanks to Alberto and Emil for putting that site together. On February 24th, so let's go back a little bit. On February 18th, we're going to be presenting the accessibility design challenges. A week after, February 28th, we're going to be presenting the boilerplate on Friends of Figma event that Beto hosts. And Sergi will be presenting his migration from Sketch to Figma, and the other half will be Jonathan and I showing the boilerplate, answering questions, showing how to use and how to use the components, and so everything's going to be there for you to create these solutions. Next month, that's when we're going to announce the winner of this challenge. And that's going to be another event that Claudio will talk about now. Okay.
Ooh, March 18th. Yes, we have none other than Kat Noon, who's agreed to join us. So hopefully Alberto will join us too. So we'll get the Starkies to come and present to us. So Stark is a suite of tools that you can use with your favorite design apps in order to basically check for accessibility in those apps. If anything, Stark is growing up to be the Grammarly of design when it comes to accessibility.
That's a good way to put it. By the way, I should say, and I didn't say this, design apps for now.
Today, design apps, tomorrow's evolved.
So, do we have the Clubhouse channel on Fluxia yet? So I can create that if no one has created that.
We do not, actually. And you know, I hope we can invite enough people into Clubhouse to really start taking some action. And there's two arguments that Clubhouse would have to say, oh, well, we don't need to be accessible. One is deaf people don't use our app, which is, you know, it's self-perpetuating ableism. The other argument that they're going to say is like, well, if we had to revise our app, it's going to be really hard. Well, if we can do this in a design competition and come up with designs within a few weeks of how their app would be or how it would look to be to be accessible, that argument has no merit. So there's real value to you folks being able to participate in this sort of design challenge.
Yeah. Also, we are looking to get some sponsors to help promote this challenge, just so no one will do work for free here. This is either will be your portfolio piece. I know that we have a bunch of bootcamp graduates eager to jump on this. I know that Rob Zamora, he participated on the last one. Who was it? It's Rachel was also participated on the last one. Don't remember. So for the Adobe XD accessibility accessible prototyping challenge. So I remember that. So we have about 30 minutes, all right, before we end this event tonight. I would love to have Orsini to present some of his Figma magic and just promote his YouTube channel. If you really want to learn Figma tricks from a pro, is the person.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for the Figma Pro. I think Ariel is looking at me, Emil is looking at me, and they're like, yeah, sure, Pro. I'm kind of like Googling things as I go, but that's my style.
It's a pro host. Let's put that.
Yeah. All right, I am not able to share my screen.
That's Claudio is excluding you.
Come on, man. I thought this was an inclusive event.
I'm having a bad interface moment here.
Well, in the meantime, I can also share, I'm sharing in the chat a link to my Figma file. So if you want to join and kind of like see as I do it, Claudio, let me know when I can go by.
Oh, I can't get to the interface part that lets me unshare this. This is like really messed up.
So let me.
If there's a keyboard shortcut I can use, this is great, but I have the unshare button covered up.
Escape? No?
No. F11?
Oh, I see a bunch of people joined. I mean, I can still do it if can everybody join in on the Figma file?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have fun. So you don't need to have Figma installed, just click on the link and you see Alberto's.
I love seeing all the cursors. I'm getting major anxiety. How can we break Figma right now? Hold on, let me take a screenshot of this because this is so special. Everybody cursor smile, like go to the center of the screen. Oh, this is awesome. Cool. I'll share this afterwards. So, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. This may have been a bad idea. All right. So what I'm gonna show you today is gonna be I'm gonna create a button with variants, and I'm gonna show you how to turn some of those variants or properties into Boolean operations within Figma, and why that can be valuable. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to press T on my keyboard to bring on my text tool. Oh, okay, cool. You're able to share. Thank you. And I'm going to say subscribe.
Let's clear the canvas for Alberto. Just put the mouse.
Yeah, I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, if everybody can move the cursor to the sides.
Cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. You guys are fantastic. So now that I have my text that says subscribe, I'm gonna hit on my keyboard Shift A, and what this is really doing is creating an auto layout frame around my text, which is really gonna become kind of like the surface of my button. Once I do that, in order to, for you to see it, really see it, I'm gonna add a fill as a background. This is gonna be a YouTube button, so I'm gonna make it, I don't know the actual YouTube hex value by heart. I should know this actually. And I'm gonna make my text selection, I'm gonna make that white so that you can read it. I should flex and pull up Stark and measure the.
There you go. So let me ask you something, Orsini. So Claudio, does Alberto can Alberto share his screen, because he's going to need to show.
It's
some
saying
of the
that I'm
variants.
looking at Beto's screen at that.
Yeah, but can you add him as a host just so he can share his screen?
Probably not. I don't think I can access the participants. So like my screen is pretty broken, and I can't even, short of rebooting my machine, I can't get out of this.
Beto, I think Beto Navarro can actually do it. No, he's a co-host. It's only Claudio. Wow.
No. Co-host can change who's sharing.
So
Yeah, so I'm only saying this because Alberto will need to share his screen to show the variants tricks.
Yeah, we cannot see the panel.
Oh, you're gonna see the panels. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't see the panels.
Sorry about that. Yeah, cool.
So you don't see the share screen button below, Alberto?
I see it now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, I saw it before, but it was giving me an error message.
Yeah.
All right.
Laura,
cool. So should I backtrack? I don't know.
Oh my God. Whew. I got my screen back.
Oh, Claudio. All right. So again, I'll start from the beginning. I pressed T on my keyboard, brought up the text tool, and wrote subscribe. From there, I'm going to press Shift A, and you'll notice here on the left side that this icon changed. This means that this is an auto layout, and it drew a frame around it, around my text, and this is going to become the surface of my button. So I'm going to add a fill to that, and I'm going to make it red again for like a YouTube button. I'm going to change the text inside of it, which I can access by clicking on the text itself. But since I have the entire frame selected, I can just say, here, change the text for white. In order to make it look more like a button, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of a corner radius or border radius. I'm not really sure why we call it border radius when it's really corners.
Border radius is the CSS attribute.
I know, but it's wrong. I'm gonna die on this hill. Yeah. So now that I have this is starting to look like a button. I'm gonna do a couple of things here in my padding and alignment. I'm actually gonna draw it in the center to ensure that my text is always centered in the button itself. I'm also gonna change, because I use an 8-point grid. I'm gonna do 8/16 on my padding, right? And that's looking pretty good. So now that I have this, let me actually rename it button. I'm gonna make it a component, and the way that I make it a component is I'm gonna hit Command Option K on my keyboard, which now turned it into a component. And the good thing about it being a component is it basically became reusable. So now I'm able to see it. Let's say if I'm here, I'm able to go over to my assets panel, and it's something that I can already start bringing in. And if I make any changes to the parent component, that change is going to reflect everywhere. For those of you that don't know, if I make it pink, it means that if I go to any instance of that button, it's now pink as well. I'm going to backtrack out of that. All right, so now that it is a button and that it's a component, I'm also able to create a variance, meaning that I want variations of this same button that I can, again, reuse everywhere. In order to do that, I'm gonna, with the actual frame selected, I'm gonna go over here to the plus symbol on variant. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write it this right now. It says property 1. I'm going to say with icon. And this is going to be dirty for a little bit, so just bear with me, but we'll clean it up after. So now I'm going to create a new text layer, and I'm going to say YouTube. And that's really because I'm using Font Awesome to bring my icons in. I don't know if you know Font Awesome, but it's pretty cool. I mean, I would check their website if anybody can share it on the chat. I use it quite a bit, but you can also use an SVG for all intents and purposes for what I'm showing. I'm gonna drop that into my auto layout for my variant, and I'm gonna select this, and I'm pressing Command. I'm gonna resize it a little bit so that I can actually see the entire thing. So now you'll see that I have my my button which says the property is set to default, and I have my button which the property says with icon. And again, going back to my test, if I select my component, I have that as an option. So you'll see that button is selected, and I have default, and I have with icon. Now, the problem with this is that I don't want this to get super convoluted, because I'm going to have secondary, tertiary buttons. I'm going to be doing quite a few things, with the only difference between them is having an icon or not having an icon. So in order to clean that up a little bit, I'm going to go again to the actual container, the frame where it says property 1. I'm going to say property 1 is going to be called icon, because that's really what I'm controlling with that. And then the tool, what I had before as default and with icon, I'm going to change default, which is my top one, to false, meaning it does not contain an icon. And the one with the icon, I'm going to change it to true. And this, they don't make it immediately visible, but this created a Boolean operation for me. So now when I'm looking at my button, you'll see that I have this little switch. So it has icon, and I can say no icon with icon. And the great thing about that is that I can now select these, and I selected both of them by holding shift and clicking on both of them. I'm gonna hit Command D, which is gonna create new versions of that, so new variables, and it's gonna say icon. Oh, sorry. Let me backtrack. I wanted to do something different before that. So I'm gonna with my container selected, I'm gonna go over here to these 3 dots to more options menu on variants. I'm gonna add a new property. This is what I did wrong before. I had added a new variant, which just creates another version of the default, and that's not what I want. What I want to do is I want to create a new property, and this new property is going to be called hierarchy. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to add secondary and potentially tertiary versions of this button. So now with the button selected, I'm gonna hit Command D as I did before, and the icon, it's gonna remain mixed because I had on and off. But in the hierarchy, you see that it says default right now. I'm gonna change that to secondary. And what I'm gonna do is these buttons are gonna look fairly similar than what they look right now, except the text on the inside is gonna be red, and my fill is gonna be white. So now, when I have my 1 button, I can not only turn on and off my icon, but I can change from, oops, I didn't rename it. Let's go back. Instead of default and secondary, I'm gonna change default to primary. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know. I don't know if I'm going too quickly, but basically I not only have the ability to turn off and on the icon, but I'm able to change between primary and secondary, which is pretty awesome, because now it means that I can do things like this, and I can turn off the icon, and I can change it to secondary, and I can say youtube.com/90 degrees. And I will have squeezed in my promo for all of you to
well deserved.
subscribe to me there.
Yeah. So can you tell everyone other applications for this in terms and how this would match with the way the developers build buttons?
So to be honest, this is, thank you for putting me on the spot. To be honest, this is really the only reason why I've used it. However, I have seen it used in other places to change. So this one person was drawing arrows where it had a node on one side and the arrowhead on the other side. And then the Boolean operation was to flip the arrow horizontally so that it pointed the other way.
Mhm.
But the good thing about this in Figma, the way they have it right now, is that you can add whatever you want to this, right? You can, I think Pablo Stanley did was it Pablo Stanley? I can't remember who it was that did a tutorial similar to this, where it was to change the icon from left to right, and that's what the switch did. You can add multiple switches, multiple Boolean operations, depending on what how you want to manage this. One thing that I want to really start using it for is for creating variants for focus states and designing those focus states as my variants. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the Start channel for that. But really, it's just a way for me as a designer catching all of these different operations that I should be handing off to my engineers rather than putting all of the decision making on them, especially if it's visual decision making. So, yeah.
Right. I was going to ask you, Alberto, if you were using it for states like, you know, disable, normal, focus, blur, you know, like for all the different states that you could need for a button.
I don't use the because this is really for things that I can just turn on and off. If I was gonna create like tertiary, or if I was gonna do different states, I would potentially do the states like this in a drop down menu, but then in any possible state, focused or unfocused, you know, so that way that Boolean operation from whatever my selection is can turn my focus state on. So then this area is going to look slightly complicated because that exponentially grows the amount of components that, or component variants that you have.
Right.
But then on the UI, the decision to show it or not show it is literally just a switch, which is pretty awesome.
Right. If you had three variants with three different options, you'd already be up at 27 different variants that you'd have to design and show.
Exactly. And the reason for doing this, you know, if you think about from a design system perspective, it's not only so that you have that easily accessible to you at any given point, but really to make the designers life easy also, you know, where at the click of that switch, you know, you can do an important operation. You can have multiple of those and have them play interchangeably. I would love to do further digging on this, and maybe at some point we can invite each other to some sort of event where we think about, like, let's brainstorm about Boolean operations and variants and what sort of things we can come up with. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Thanks so much, Alberto. Any questions from the audience? So any suggestions, does anyone want to show anything? I know Saleena, you are also a Figma pro here, and feel free to chime in. I love putting people on the spot.
Well, she just shared a file, so maybe you can walk us through that file.
Let's see. All
right, Claudio, where is the share button to Saleena?
Yeah. Can I share?
Oh, you know what? I have to upgrade you as a participant. I'm gonna find you in the list of all these participants we have.
That is a ridiculous amount of variance. Wow.
It's all built in those two cards.
Wow.
You are a co-host.
All right. Let's see here.
I'm sorry.
So if anyone wanted to learn anything about
Oh wait, I have to
variance,
hit yes.
they're gonna give up now.
Okay, so not only do I have to do this, I have to find
Oh
some
my God.
dialogue on my screen that says a little yes somewhere where I'm totally not looking to be able to do this.
That's a different design challenge, Claudio. Like, let's make Zoom accessible.
Oh,
All right, you guys can see this, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
oh wow.
So I just kind of copy and paste this from our design system. So hopefully you can see the variants. Let me make this full screen. All right, so pretty much all these variants. So we have a multi-brand design system that I'm building. So these cards are used on 6 or 7 different sites. And pretty much this is not only the card variation, but also at an organism level, as far as what those cards look like in a 2-column or 1-column of our site. So pretty much these are just the different variations of them. So everything is baked into these, we call them action cards, but everything is baked into here. So things are hidden, are pretty much in that one vertical card. I didn't know how to make it for horizontal, so I made a separate one that's horizontal. But pretty much, I just went in here and just hide things. And I don't know if you can see it on here. No, I might have to actually go.
Show the real thing.
Yeah. Hold on. So you can see my variants on the side here. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
So pretty much these variants are just specific to us. I'm sure 2-column, 1-column won't make sense to you, or but pretty much like there are the horizontal, vertical icons, center left, the action buttons is a Boolean, yes or no, and that will show you a action button or a link. I could probably show you a test of it. I haven't gone in this file in a while, but let's see.
That's all right, no pressure. So
yeah.
So not only true or false, but also yes or no will work as a switch.
Yes. So pretty much this is a outline of our.
Didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So right here, I can change this section to whatever I want. So if I want a horizontal, and then if that variant isn't there, so like I have 4 cards there, but for a horizontal stack, we only have 2 cards. So because that's not a variant, like 4 stacking, it's just going to default to, I think, the first variant. But so if I want 2 of these, I can get 2, and you can see it's pushing everything down.
Pretty cool.
So this is all of auto layout. So if I want 4 of these, I can have 4. If I want to take out the action buttons, I can take out the actions. If I want icons, you want the image, there's the image ones. So pretty much I have this at a level where we can wireframe things really fast, because this is all in our development. All these cards, it's just how do we want to lay out things and how we want to see things. But that's pretty much how I have it.
This is a great example
Wow.
on how you optimize your work, right? So it looks a lot, but you pretty much copy and paste and creating different properties and variants. So, and for this purpose, so you do that once and you have at your disposal throughout, many projects.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where you see that center, that center variant. That's our center column. And then we have the variant that is the mobile. And that's where you see like if you want the mobile, the 1-column or 2-column. I mean, that's specific to us, but yeah.
Very
but
cool.
yeah, that's how we use variants. It's I haven't seen anyone really use it this way yet, but it took a lot of tinkering to make this happen.
I'm so impressed. I'm just amazed. I'm looking at this. Go back to where you were before, and because I was looking at what you had in the right column.
Right here.
No, where you actually were showing the variants in your interface. Action list. That's what you had. Okay, yeah. Perfect. So I was trying. I saw, for instance, with action lists, you had 5 different variants. in the right-hand column. So I'm imagining you have to design or create an iteration for every intersection of those 5 variants. So I was trying to do the math, and you moved on, and you had 2 times 5 times 2 times 2 again. And then there was the last one. I was like, okay, you're up to 40. And then if you multiply that by 3, if you had 3 in that, that was like 120 variants. I'm like, wow, that is like such a systematic way of doing this.
Yeah.
So that's probably like the first pass. If you go through this, you can definitely abstract some of these multipliers.
Yeah. I didn't even like get to like lists, but pretty much I have the list baked in with a unordered, order, timeline, pros and cons, definition, fact, all in one component. But I'm still trying to get those baked out. But see, this is the problem. Like I have 5 different variants in one component, and that becomes very hard to teach another designer who doesn't know how to toggle things on and off. That's where variance comes on, because they can just see it and say, okay, I want the order list, and then that comes on, or I want the number, the definition list, and then that would change it, and they don't have to toggle things on and off in the layers. The only issue is like creating these things. I think I'm still battling with it. Should I create a very complicated component and just toggle things on and off, or should I create one component for order, one component for unorder and timeline? So yeah.
So
there's
like
different ways you can go about it.
Yeah, the precursor to these variants, we used to build these components and try to create a menu hierarchy where you just go drilling down through design systems menu until you find the right component, you select and you click on the run component. So this is how variants makes our lives much easier. I want to thank Saleena and Alberto so much for sharing your work here. Really appreciate this.
No problem.
This is the power of a community. They are not even scheduled to present. They just like stepped up and did it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? We have about 10 minutes. We can definitely show some artificial intelligence API working with Figma. So, Beto.
Yes.
Where do we want to take this now?
I mean, anyone else has questions or anything else that they want to add, please feel free. If not, we can just start popping beers.
I'm going to stop recording.
There you go.